14 of the fantasy football season, and here's a few defense DST units I have as sleepers this week. The first one, the Washington football team. So the Washington football team here, they've been a hit or miss defense, and a defense that was drafted early in fantasy drafts coming into the year. But right here this week, I know it's a tough matchup versus Dak Prescott in this Dallas Cowboy offense, but right here, this Cowboy offense is totally different on the road. Prescott, you don't put up as big numbers. He's more inaccurate, and a lot of drives that are quick and out for the Cowboys as well on the road. So right here, the Cowboys, like I mentioned, they don't give up a lot of fantasy points to defenses on the season. But this Washington football team, they've been winning ball games because of defense. Week 11 at Carolina, they won that ball game 27-21 with the defense, 21 points allowed, a sack in that one. Week 12 versus Seattle, they won that one 17-15, 13 points allowed, 2 sacks, a fumble recovery. And then week 13, they won again 17-15 was Washington. 15 points allowed and 2 sacks. So right here, I think the Dallas Cowboys, they'll score more than 15 points. But I think only 21 to 24 points at most this Cowboy offense is going to score in this game. And I think they could get to Dak Prescott a few times with the sacks. And I wouldn't be surprised if they get a few turnovers as well in this one. So right now, Washington is available in 73% of fantasy leagues. And their defense I have as a sleeper this week. The second defense is the Detroit Lions. The Lions, you could say what you want about them this year. I know they're 1-10-1, but this team goes out there and competes at least each and every week. They haven't lost a lot of ball games by crazy margins, especially the last few weeks. Week 10 at Pittsburgh, 16-16, that ball game ended in a tie. 16 points allowed, and they throw 2 fumble recoveries. Week 11 at Cleveland, they lost 13-10, 13 points allowed, a sack, 2 win throws, a block kick. Week 12 versus the Chicago Bears, lost 16-14, 16 points allowed, a sack, and then they throw. And then last week in a great victory versus Minnesota, they won 29-27, 27 points allowed, 3 sacks, and a fumble recovery. So right here, week 14 at Denver, this Bronco offense isn't clicking on all cylinders, and they do give up the 8th most fantasy points to defenses on the season. So I think the Lions could get a few plays in this one. They could hold this Bronco offense down to anywhere from 18 to 24 points. And Teddy Bridgewater, let's be honest, I know I have him as a sleeper option, but he's a guy who easily could fizzle out and only score 10 to 12 fantasy points. So I think this Detroit Lion team that's available right now, the DST, in 99% of fantasy leagues, if you're in desperation mode to put a defense in there, I think they could have a decent game, anywhere from 6 to 8 fantasy points, and they totally won't hurt fantasy team. This week in the third and final DST I have as a sleeper is the New York Jets. So the Jets here, I know their defense has been horrible this season. I know they are available in 99% of fantasy leagues, but right here on paper, it's not the worst of matchups versus the Saints, who give up the 18th most fantasy points to DSTs on the season. So the last few weeks here for the Jets, week 11 versus Miami, 24 points allowed in it though. Week 12 at Houston, 14 points allowed, 5 sacks in it though. And then week 13 versus the Philadelphia Eagles, 33 points allowed, 2 sacks. So right here, the Saint offense just hasn't been good over the last few weeks. But I think a couple guys on the same team could get going. And the key is Alvin Kamara. But right here, if you're in the deepest of leagues or have no other options, is the only way I'm going to recommend the Jets defense as a sleeper option. But right here, it wouldn't surprise me if the Jets got 5 to 7 fantasy points this week. But it's probably not going to happen. So that's a few DST defense sleepers I got here for week 14 of the fantasy football season.